In 1976, one of England's leading symphonic rock maximalist bands found themselves reduced from 5 to 4 members, losing their vocalist, when they released 2 solid albums in a row with their drummer promoted to the microphone. I am talking, of course, about Genesis. And from the second of those 2 albums released in 1976, Wind and Wuthering, the track 11th Earl of Mar. Okay, this creamy, misty, almost like crystalline sound that's just emanating from the banks, no pun intended, of Tony Banks' keyboard arsenal. Just sets the stage for the lush, lavish beauty that's set to unfold over the next 7.5 minutes. Okay, and I must comment, we have heard some beautiful major 7th chord passages so far, like going from like E flat major 7, and then passing through a sequence like where one note seems to be kind of held onto throughout like the 3 chords that we pass along through. Yeah, like na 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 na. We're hearing like the D quite a lot. Yeah, if we go from like E flat major 7, which will have a D in it, that's the major 7, to B flat, and then yeah. Okay, the lush thickness has now been enhanced by Phil Collins' controlled cymbal mist. And now I have got to say that despite having played this song hundreds of times over the last 27 years, despite having role-played the song on numerous occasions during my 20s, and knowing most of the lyrics by heart, even if it's been a few years since I've really I've listened to the song, quite frankly, the actual meaning of the song is going to be what I'm really reacting to as I dig a bit deeper, because in the past the lyrics at most have really just been period English historical role play to me, kind of like in a very abstract sense. I'm going to be learning a bit more about what, and I do believe that a true understanding of these lyrics would require some historical reading. So I'll just, yeah. Oh, the way that one keyboard just kind of like wheezes upward, and just the overall thickness, and as the drumming comes in, and yeah, now we're rolling along with much more kind of fervency. The sun had been up for a couple of hours. Cover the ground with a layer of gold. That is the opening line, according to Wikipedia, of the novel The Flight of the Heron by D.K. Broster. Rutherford, who wrote the song's lyrics, now that I didn't know Rutherford wrote the lyrics entirely himself. Got the idea after reading a history book about a failed Scottish rising around 1715. I always assumed that these lyrics, as like the lyrics to the next song on the album, One for the Vine, are like set like in like the 18th century, or maybe even beforehand. Hackett wrote the music and lyrics to the song's bridge which was originally a section of a different song. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, the people credited on Banks, Hackett, and Rutherford. Yeah, I figured it was mostly a Banks song, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Oh yeah, okay. I know exactly what part they're referring to that Hackett wrote. Yeah, I guess I'll mention it later. Okay, let's catch up with the lyrics here. On genius.com. Okay, I read the first two lines. Spirits were high and the raining had stopped. The larder was low. But boy, that wasn't all. Let's see. The larder. A room or large cupboard for storing food. Interesting. Yeah, that's a word I haven't ever used before, really. Okay. 11th Earl of Mar. Couldn't get them very far. So, a group of people are on kind of like a pilgrimage, on kind of, with towage. Yeah. And then there's the next line, which... Daddy, oh Daddy, you promised. Okay, now that line finally makes sense to me after all these years. Daddy, oh Daddy, you promised. That is spoken, I guess, from the point of view of a young girl. So this is like a family, and that because Genesis would often play act different points of view in lyrics. It was something that not a lot of bands did. It was kind of a trademark of Genesis, where and you would have to really be astute and follow the lyrics to get, or you might get confused. Like in their first hit single, I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. In the first verse, they go through several different points of view. They speak, like the first line is, first they narrate, they'll go between like narrator, they'll introduce like, there's always been Ethel, and then they speak from her voice, like this old lady, this like cranky kind of bossy old lady, and then the narrator voice introduces, and then Mr. Lewis, this like kind of old proper English, statesman, and they sing from his voice, and they do that a lot, like role playing, like different, like, or in like the middle eight to or actually the mid section, the song within a song of Battle of Epping Forest, they go through like a bunch of characters in there, but it's kind of hard to think of those when I'm engrossing myself in this. Back to 11th Earl of Mar. Out on the road in the direction of Perth, Scotland. Yeah, not Perth, Australia, which had not even been settled during the time in which these lyrics are based. Okay, lot to unpack here. Out on the road in the direction of Perth, backwards and forwards in a circle they went. Found a city half open and ready to greet the conquering heroes with blisters on their feet. Okay, so the people in the first verse are conquering heroes, because the first verse I was kind of getting the message, I was kind of thinking that this was like a frontier family, except a frontier like an old, well, back in the day before like modern means of travel, when you just had to like travel on like when you had to travel on horses and with a larder in tow. Okay, we heard that once again. Yeah, 11th Earl of Mar somehow got them all this far. Daddy, you promised. Okay, I'm thinking actually the first two verses deal with different groups of people who've been coming from different directions to the same place, to Perth. to be greeted by the 11th Earl of Mar. Oh, that key center right there. La. I think we're in G major 7th, but they're emphasizing that da na 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 C. That would be G suspended. No, that would be G suspended. Yeah, because if you were F sharp. That's strange. If that has both a suspended, if that's G with both a suspended 3rd and a major 7th in it, that would mean there's kind of 2 notes as far as you can get. So there's kind of a tritone contained in that chord. And yet it sounds so beautiful, so lush, so heavenly. Sorry to talk over Phil like that. Oh, that's quite a character. See the steward all dressed up. He's got eyes in the back of his head. So he has a sixth sense, and he knows what's going, or he can sense what's going on behind him. Okay, let's see. Who came in a cockshell boat that could only just float, couldn't even lift a sword? Talking more about some of the people in the makeshift, kind of precarious means by which they traveled to this place. Dressed too fine and smelling of wine. Yeah, that's quite an imagery. So, kind of like a pirate drunkard. Yeah, who had been who made the whole trip on like whiskey and. That "Daddy, you got to go." It's got to be sung from the point of view of a child. Otherwise, I wonder if it's just maybe like when I was younger, I thought it was just like an effete bit of camp, you know. But yeah, I wonder how far that's been probed, the meaning of that. He's gonna bet you if you're ready to pay. Okay, more lyrics here. Daddy, you've got to go. Here come the bishop all dressed up. He's gonna bless you if you're ready to pay. That was kind of one line that always kind of just rushed right by me. I didn't quite have that memorized. He's gonna bless you if you. That's interesting. That adds a dimension here. Yeah, it just talks about like all the different characters that are converging at this place here. It's just so colorful, so yeah, full of imagery. You know, a little bit back here. Oh, that line right there, that melody, that just winding, kind of spiraling, twirly melody. I mean, it follows the line. It follows the line. One wave of his funny old stick. There's a band of light across your eyes. Yeah, that's like basically that melody. No, no, no. Over those beautiful, lush, like F major 7 to E minor. That's basically that represents the stick being waved, and the band of light. That melody right there. Yeah, I would always make that gesture every time I play acted the song, like during my 20s. Okay, another big, thick verse to unpack. Waited a week, still they hadn't appeared. That glorious timing that everyone feared. So they're riding along on the crest of a wave. They're headed for London, and that will be their grave. Okay, so they've left this place up in Scotland. Now they're going back down to southeast England because they didn't find what they were looking for up in Perth. Yeah. A glorious timing. Now that's really quite a load. That glorious timing that so they were waiting for something that they feared, that glorious timing. So they're riding along on a crest of a wave. There's such a grandiose visual image, like beautiful imagery, and like there are more mundane ways that this plot could have been phrased, and I just love the colorful lyrical language that's employed here. That's something that just became a lost art over the decades. Yeah, and then we go back into the chorus again. I'm waiting. Okay, now we've got this part, like after, we're going into the section, except it's, that we've been through before, except it's a lot thicker now. And this time, Steve Hackett is really coming to the fore here. As a matter of fact, perhaps for the first time in this song, really. It's like oftentimes his ghostly licks and bends and such would add like light atmosphere, and oftentimes kind of be buried like in the thick, kind of foggy, misty banks of Tony's, well, what does Tony play on this album? Steinway grand piano, which we have yet to hear. ARP 2600 synthesizer, ARP Pro Soloist, Hammond organ, Mellotron, Roland string synthesizer, Fender Rhodes piano. It just, the list goes on and on and on. Yeah, it's often, as a matter of fact, sometimes, depending on the passage, you actually might be hearing some guitar work that's actually Rutherford on like his 12-string nylon guitar or something. Kind of like in like Isle of Plenty, Cinema Show. Yeah, Cinema Show. Some of that guitar work was actually more, like at the beginning, I think was more Rutherford. Because that was like a sound that him and Rutherford, no, that Rutherford and Anthony Phillips developed together on Trespass, you know, and would also play together on some of Anthony Phillips' early solo work. But back to this song. Hackett has kind of an echoey tone right here that reminds me somewhat of Brian May, now that I think of it. I've never really thought of those two in the same sentence before, but yeah, I kind of like what the sound that May was using on A Night at the Opera and A Day at the Races. Oh, we've landed somewhere really special now. We've found a place of serenity. Okay, I'm not exactly sure who's giving us that right. I'm thinking that could possibly be Rutherford right there on that acoustic. But then again, I think that we have found, knowing now that Hackett wrote the mid section, or they said, or I think the part that's coming up is what they're referring to. There are some like classical guitar moves coming up that that Hackett would explore a lot more, like say like on his first solo album after leaving the band, Please Don't Touch. Yeah. Hear that like kalimba or like marimba? It sounds like a kalimba. That is such a beautiful chord right there. It's like a combination of chords. Like I'm hearing like C major 7th with I think like some suspended seconds on it. I'm hearing quite a few like notes added. Just in the harmonic interplay, like it almost sounds like two acoustic guitars playing at once. I'm thinking this could be Hackett and Rutherford on acoustic right here. Okay, one of them is on like a 12-string nylon guitar. Is that? You know, I haven't explored. Oh yeah, there is kalimba on this. Duh. Steve Hackett actually, well, is credited with playing some kalimba. I'm actually thinking Steve Hackett was playing the kalimba we just heard, and Mike Rutherford was on 12-string guitar here, main B. And oh, Steve Hackett also plays nylon classical guitar. Maybe I'm not sure. Is nylon guitar the one that's giving us kind of that harp-like sound? Because I don't think we have any actual harp on this album, but I heard a sound that kind of sounded like a harp. Yeah. Yeah. Hear that swirling keyboard sound, kind of airy, kind of faint. This passage really aligns with the cover art. I could picture the character, the narrator here, kind of just sitting right by that tree as the wind is like blowing and just kind of down, kind of in this tranquil, peaceful, just sort of like, you know, sitting by that tree side, almost kind of like leaning by the trunk. Okay, a lot of lyrics to unpack here. Okay, let's see, where am I? Okay, time to go to bed now. Never seems too keen to be a guest now in a house of dreams. Huh. I just love the soft, almost kind of like bedtime tone that Phil Collins takes during this passage. Flying from a hillside, beckoning the trees, a sailboat's awning, mimicking the breeze. It just all these depictions of nature, of wind, of water, of flora. Yeah, and I guess perhaps someone really steeped in the reading might be able to pinpoint how these metaphors relate to the 11th Earl of Mar. But either way, the imagery is just lush. It's just supreme. Yeah. This section of the song is much like the section. It's funny enough that the next song on the album, One for the Vine, also has this kind of tranquil part where the narrator kind of escapes from it all, and like seems to like go and sit by a pond, and kind of go into this kind of bedtime voice, and then momentarily falls to sleep. I'm pretty sure you know what part of the song I'm talking about. This section of with Steve Hackett's guitar, which we don't hear anywhere else, that bloom, 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 bloom. I swear, such a beautiful, like, bridge there, like, just harmonic convergence of notes on an acoustic guitar. Should have been used a bit more on this album. Should have been repeated a bit. I wonder if this is actually spoken from the point of view of that young girl. My daddy. Yeah. Maybe she went away and sat by a tree side to escape all the ruckus that was going on. Oh, that music, that sonic representation of falling, of plunging, like an avalanche. Yeah, okay, let's catch up with where the lyrics took us. Okay, I'm fighting, gravity falling. My daddy won't let them get me. A face scream seems to be calling. The face turns, features are burning. This seems almost scary, almost like a little girl's nightmare or something. I'm still, I only have like a fragmentary understanding of what this is all about, but it still intrigues me nonetheless. It's like the more I find myself asking questions, the more curious I get. I hear the boom, boom, and then we've got some kind of like thin guitar, I guess from Hackett, dun, electric this time. Dun, no, 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 no. Oh, and those kind of like choral Mellotron sound. It sounds like oh, but it's actually coming from one of Tony's keyboards. Hey, you got to know. See the thing going by. Oh, hear those drum rolls, more aggressive this time. Yeah, we're getting more fills, more rolls, more kind of like crafty bass lines. Like, yeah, everyone's like Phil on his drum kit, and like Mike Rutherford, you know, coming more to the fore at this point. Okay, Daddy, you've got to go. See the 15 going by. Okay, 15 men on a procession. Like 15 soldiers, like, I guess. Tell the lairds and the lords. Now, this is very old English. Like, I guess it's probably Elizabethan English. They're running backwards today. And once again, you stand alone. I used to just play act these lyrics so much when I was in my 20s and get all, like, melodramatic. I would often do it in front of the mirror back when I was like in my early 20s, dressed the way I used to back then, kind of all Harlequin-like. And I remember the facial expressions I used to make. It just takes me back, yeah. The soundtrack of my 20s, yeah. Music like this got me through the 90s. That almost like theremin like sound right there, just the way it twirls and winds upward over that beautiful like major seventh to minor chord progression and the rolls and just the misty, almost like hurricane like swirl of it all. Yeah. Bury your memories, bury your friends, leave me alone for a year or two, till the stories go hazy and the legends come true, then you begin. Something's never end. Okay, a lot of lyrics to unpack here. Bury your memories, bury your friends, leave it alone for a year or two, till the stories go hazy and the legends come true. Oh God, that is such a beautiful line. It's till the stories go hazy and the legends come true. That could be employed in a lot of contexts. Yeah, when a story kind of becomes removed from those who actually have first-hand memories, it gets kind of mythologized. Certain, I don't know, falsehoods come to be accepted. It kind of gets distorted over time, and then legends emerge, and it becomes the stuff of. It becomes kind of like a mixture of fact, fantasy, fiction. Yeah. Then do it again. Some things never end. Maybe that's referring back to what went on in this in these lyrics. It's like all of the point of views and stories recounted have been kind of passed down through generations and retold to the point where only certain true facts are really known. And so, yeah, maybe this is dealing with kind of somewhat of a fictionalized history, and that's what these lyrics are acknowledging. Yeah. Heck, maybe when that little girl got older, she was telling it to her grandkids. But since she only partially understood what was going on, she had kind of like a misty, hazy story, recounting to pass on. And then that got passed down to their grandkids and so forth. Yeah. Okay, 11th Earl of Mar won't be going very far. So the story of the 11th Earl of Mar, perhaps, I guess the 11th Earl of Mar never quite became the legend, or his story never quite got told as truthfully as maybe it ought to have been, because history kind of had a way of going hazy. You promised. Okay, we're about to climax here. You promised. You promised. You promised. Okay, now we're about to just kind of fade into the ultimate marsh of tonality and color. Okay, now we just heard that melody for perhaps the last time, juxtaposed to a different key center and a different cadence, really like open cadence now, and voluminous and thick over banks. It almost sounds like Tony is playing all of his keyboards at once. That was Genesis with the 11th Earl of Mar from their 1976 album, Wind and Wuthering. Yes, released in December of 1976, 10 months after their prior album, the February 76 release, A Trick of the Tail. Yes, a band that were on such a creative roll at the time that they managed 2 great albums, arguably their 2 best albums ever, in the span of the same year. Yes. And a little bit more on this song by Genesis. It was released, let's see, 11th Earl of Mar refers to the historical figure of John Erskine, Earl of Mar, a Scottish Jacobite. Okay, a few references there. Okay, its working title was Scottish. Yeah, they had a lot of like working titles as they were putting songs together. Okay, a Jacobite, Earl of Mar. Yeah, okay. If I scroll over that, John Erskine, Earl of Mar, KT, was a Scottish Jacobite who was the eldest son of Charles, Earl of Mar, from whom he inherited estates that were heavily loaded with debt. He was the 23rd Earl of Mar in the first creation of the earldom. He was also the 6th Earl in the 7th creation. He was nicknamed Bobbing John for his tendency to shift back and forth from faction to faction, whether from Tory to Whig or Hanoverian to Jacobite. Okay. That right there makes some references. Yeah. Backwards and forward in the lyrics. Yeah, faction to faction. I think there were a few different parties represented in the lyrics that we just heard. And there's also quite a lot to learn about English and Scottish history of the 18th century if you truly want to understand, have more of an in-depth understanding of the lyrics. So, some reading ahead. And I'm pretty sure, let's see, what do the comments say on, on Genius.com, someone adds that John Erskine was an incompetent general who squandered all strategic advantages camping near the city of Perth for a week. Aha, yeah, that's what I was kind of figuring out as I went along through those lyrics, that they went up to Perth and then they didn't find what they were looking for and so they left, yeah. Giving time to the royal forces of the opposition to organize. Rutherford, oh, maybe so that's how Daddy let the little girl down. Maybe, I guess the little girl was John Erskine's daughter. Rutherford, who wrote the song's lyrics, got the idea after reading a history book about a failed Scottish rising around 1750. That's interesting. So Rutherford, I guess, learned a few things about English-Scottish history in the lead up to this album's recording and was inspired to rise. That's great. Another thing I love about the 70s, like Al Stewart would do this a lot. He would, in his spare time, he would read about history and it would inspire lyrics to songs. Yeah. Great, yeah, great way to, form the basis of a new song idea. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that there had been some, maybe back in the days when when some of those prog community forums were a bit more intellectually inspired than they are today. There may have been some people who probed into these lyrics a bit more. There may have been some intelligent conversations about that. There may. I don't know. I'm pretty sure on the internet there have been some dissertations written on these lyrics. I'm more interested right at this point at hearing some of your dissertations, if you have any, or deeper ideas about where these lyrics could be going. But anyway, Genesis, 11th Earl of Mar from their 1976 album, Wind and Wuthering. Yes, one of their greatest, one of the best albums of the year, arguably, heck, one of my top 2 favorite albums of the year. For more rubies and sapphires from the catalog of Genesis, see the directory of albums by English G artists linked in the description below for red hot tracks and purples from all of the Genesis albums. And let's face it, most of the Genesis albums up through the mid-'80s were, by and large, ruby packed from front to back. Yes. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about this song, its layers, its instrumentation, its melodies, its harmonies, the classical interludes, who had the best part, which bridges. There were so many, so much to unpack, so many different layers, nuances. Yeah, which moment stood out the best to you? The vocals, the lushness, the theatricism, and the lyrics. Yeah, what your interpretations of the lyrics, I would like to hear them. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled tri-maximalist, signing off.